building Monday, August 26th. It's 6:35 p.m. Will all please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the roll call. Mr. Secretary.
Madam President, it's so exciting to see such a great group who are excited about board policies. Misha Hurley.
Present.
Thomas Dowdy.
Present.
Cheryl Fletcher.
Present.
Shirley Tolliver.
Present.
Lori Hicks.
Present.
Steve Baker present. And Nicole King.
Present. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes? There being none, the agenda is as written. Next item on the agenda is recognition of people and programs. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I am going to quickly turn it over to Mr. Paparazzi.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Board of Education, audience members this evening. As you know, this is arguably probably the most joyous evening of our school board meetings. And so at this time, Madam President, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce our latest group of new hires and introduce them to the audience tonight as well as members of the Board of Education. And so first up, we have Mr. Paul Garrett. If you'd be so kind to wave or stand. Paul Garrett is joining us over at Adams Elementary School. He also happens to be a parent of students over at Adams, and he's an experienced educator. We're fortunate to have him, and we also appreciate Paul and his spouse were kind enough to allow us to teach to his kids today. We had some teaching practices taking place this afternoon, and Paul was kind enough to lend us his children, and we're super excited to have Paul joining the Adams team, and he'll be serving in the capacity of a special ed teacher. So, Paul, welcome to the Summer River. Not with us this evening, but certainly no stranger to us is Suzanne Terry, who formerly was a teacher at Adams Elementary School. She left us a couple years ago, but she's rejoining the team, and she'll be transitioning to the Fisher staff, and she'll be teaching third grade over at Fisher. So we're super excited to have Suzanne rejoining the South Redford team. And also we have Tori Mackman that's here this evening. She's in the front. And Tori is what we refer to as a job fair find. She connected with Vanderburg kindergarten teacher Kristen Pebbles, who is able to join us at a job fair. And Kristen and Tori really hit it off. And Kristen's words to me was that we need to interview Tori as quickly as possible. And so we're super excited to have Tori joining us over at Jefferson Elementary School. So welcome, Tori. Seated to Tori's right, we have Kimberly Samsell, who is joining us also at Jefferson, teaching third grade. So Kimberly and Tori will be spending a lot of time together this evening as OVO partners. Kimberly is joining us. She also is a job fair find. We really connected at the Madonna Job Fair, and as you know, we're always looking for fit. And you should all know that for her teaching lesson, she brought in a hedgehog, which all the students as well as staff were mutually engaged with the hedgehog activity. And she asked before, she's like, "Is it okay that I have this pet with me here?" And we're super excited to have her on board. So welcome, Kimberly. Also joining us, that is also a job fair find, is Mr. Joshua Short, who is also a second career educator. He's not able to join us this evening, but we're super excited to have him. He's been a longtime volleyball coach. He ran his own landscaping company, and he's fallen in love with education, and so we're thrilled to have him. And Mr. Short will be teaching over at Vandenberg with Mrs. Hughes. So welcome. So you're going to hear me refer to job fair fines, but then also student teachers. So we were also fortunate to hire some of our student teachers that we had last year, and so Jessica Jaska is there. And welcome, Jessica. So, as you know, Chris Coos, one of our teachers at Pierce, she is like the gold standard, and so Jessica had the opportunity to teach alongside of Chris Coos, and Chris Coos called and said, "You definitely need to interview this girl before she leaves us. She's doing a great job, and really consider her." And so we're fortunate to have Jessica making South Redford a permanent place. So welcome, Jessica. And the next person comes from a long line of educators, and she has limitless potential. And we had a lot of conversations, and out of hundreds of people that we speak with at the job fairs, she's probably one of the most reflective. And it's Brianna Shambo, who will be joining us at the Pierce staff, and she's going to be teaching language arts. She's traveled abroad to Germany, and we're super thrilled to have somebody as reflective as Brianna joining the team. So welcome, Brianna Shambo. Probably the most calming presence of all the candidates that we spoke with, ironically enough, happens to be a special educator who's seated right next to Brianna, and that's Andrea. Andrea taught a self-contained classroom for us during her teaching lesson, and the way that she engaged students, some students that really struggled to be verbal opened right up to Andrea. And that's how we knew right away that Andrea was going to be the right fit. And so Andrea is going to be joining the special ed team over at Vandenberg, and we're thrilled to have Andrea as well. And she's also a job fair find. Another second career person who we were fortunate enough to interview, who has tremendous versatility. He's had some outstanding life experiences. In fact, recently returned from Italy. We're glad that he returned from Italy. And that's Mr. Aaron Rosebrock. And so welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have Aaron, not only as a second career educator, but he tried to avoid education as long as he could. And he couldn't ignore his passion anymore, and we're glad that he didn't. And he has an amazing certification. He's certified to teach both English as well as special ed. And he's just so open-minded, and he's like, I'm willing to teach wherever you need me. But again, the way that he engaged our students in his lessons over at Thurston High School was pretty profound. And we're super thrilled to have him joining the Thurston and the district team. So welcome, Aaron. Also joining the Thurston team, teaching math, will be Rachel Bauman, who comes to us with a handful of years of experience. She taught in Indiana for a number of years. She's a Valparaiso graduate, and we're super glad to have her as a transplant to Michigan, and excited to have her be a part of the Thurston team. So again, watching Rachel teach was pretty impressive, because the way that students opened up about math with Rachel was pretty impressive, and it was with a group of struggling learners that struggle with math in the summer program. And by the end of the lesson, students were very engaged in interacting with Rachel as well as with the content. And so anybody that can do that in just a handful of minutes is certainly somebody that we're pleased to have. So welcome, Rachel. A student teacher that is also joining us permanently, and we're just thrilled, is Laura Doty. Welcome, Laura. So those mosaics behind you, as you all well know, come from Deb Graham. And Deb Graham has had a host of student teachers over her time here in South Redford. And certainly Debbie and I have a special bond, and we all know that, and we talked about that back in June. And Debbie's words to me were, if you don't interview her, you're an absolute fool. She's the perfect fit to be my replacement. And she said, if I taught you anything, please take this advice. And I said, of course. And so, we're just thrilled to have Laura be a part of our team. And welcome to Thurston and to South Redford permanently. So, welcome. Another job fair find. So, I actually scheduled her interview right there on the spot, because within about 10 minutes of conversation, I was like, she very well could be the right fit for us, and that's Miss Hannah Roby, who's seated next to Laura. And so welcome, Hannah. She comes to us with a number of years of experience as an educator, as a math teacher, and her energy is just absolutely contagious. And so we're just thrilled to have her joining the team also. So welcome, Hannah, and we're glad that you're going to be an Eagle. And some special thank yous this evening. None of these new hires would be possible without everybody's support and encouragement. As you know, during the spring there's a number of job fairs, but certainly you can see the fruits of the effort from time invested into the job fairs and the partnerships that we've built with colleges and universities. And it's been a joy getting to know all these prospects, and we hope that they have prosperous careers here in South Redford. And it's been an interview panel. Many people served on the panel, both administrators as well as teachers, and then also at times clerical people too. And again, without those three groups, none of this would be possible, because it's certainly a team effort. And then a special thank you to the principals, as well as to Kim Murray, who's here this evening as well, who takes the time to personally onboard and get an opportunity to get to know every single staff member, because again, we believe that fit is vitally important. And so special thanks to Kim, to the administrative team, to the clerical team, and to all the teachers that served on the panel. So Madam President, for your consideration for official hire, are the following individuals before you.
Are they on the consent agenda?
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll move on to, are there any other board superintendent communications?
Two comments, Madam President.
Mr. Baker?
Welcome aboard. I know it'll be official in about 5 minutes. But, we're excited to have you here. It's a fabulous district, and we are your servants. And so if there's something that we can do, we strongly believe in the chain of command, and so we'd like you to bump it up to your administrator and then on up the food chain. But if there's something we can do in particular, we're honored to serve you all. And so welcome aboard. We're glad you're here. Two questions. One is, and I'm not the mathematician here, but it looks like 25% of our people are third grade teachers. Is there start the third grade reading?
So that's a wonderful question, Mr. Galdis, if I may.
Absolutely.
So, in fact, because our third grade team was so strong, some of them actually moved into instructional coaching positions, and so that's what opened up a number of the positions that we have there within third grade. And so, what better opportunity than to learn together for the first time? So, good person.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, and don't make this the last time you come and visit us. Thank you, Madam President.
Any other communications?
Yeah, President, just a couple of comments. We a couple of projects that we're wrapping up. We've been talking about the cafeteria. I was there as recently as this afternoon, and it is coming along nicely. I'm actually going to send pictures again today. I've been sending you pictures over the summer of the progress, and I decided, no, they need to see this in person. And so you will, at our next meeting. We're going to have it in the cafeteria, and so you'll get a chance to see it there. And we've been talking about this project for a long time, and I'm super proud of the board for taking on this project and being patient with the project, knowing that we didn't have to take any dollars on credit, right? We paid for it with money coming in. The finance department gets a ton of credit in working with the state to allow us to do things that they didn't want us to do and saving money. But it really worked out in our benefit. And so I'm very pleased with that project. The tennis courts have been resurfaced. As you know, they were at the very end of their life cycle by a number of years. And really not really playable. And so having the resurfacing done on them has proved to be a great project, and they look awesome. If you get a chance, go out there and take a look at them. They get not only is it great for our kids, but those courts get a lot of community use, and so the community I think is going to be very happy when they go to show up now that they can get out on the courts again. And so it's taking some time to cure. But once that's cured, the nets will go back up, and our kids will obviously play in the community also. So that's a great project. What's not up yet is the wind screening. That's on order, so that'll go up. And so that'll just dress it off real nice. We're also going to do wind screening on the baseball diamond. It's been a while since there's been any wind screening up there. And so the hardball diamond gets screening on the outfield fence. And it has to do a lot with safety and being able to see the ball, because the ball travels at such a velocity. And if you don't have something behind you, if you're the catcher or the batter, it becomes an issue. So that wind screening will go up also. So taking care of a lot of projects. We have a courtyard at Thurston that has original brickwork in it that is retaining walls. It has some retaining walls. And last spring, one of the walls actually kind of fell in a little bit. And, so we had those walls removed, and we're in the process of putting that back together now. And so that courtyard is really going to look really nice when it's done. There's two that are still in good shape. The rest of them will get taken down and replaced. I anticipate that project will be done hopefully by next Tuesday, by the time the kids come. So that'd be nice. The high school principals, got that new team over there, and they have really taken it under their wing to really kind of take a fine look at the building and really look for those little things that you might not see necessarily consciously. And so next time you walk through Thurston, notice some of the little things. I think you'd be very pleased. Things that are on the walls. They moved the vending machines out of the front door too. So that's got a nice clean look. That's where the kids come in every day. So I'm really pleased with what's going on there. And spent a lot of time walking buildings this summer, and I'm very pleased with the conditions of the buildings where they are. So that's been maybe M has lived up to their commitment to us so far. We can keep an eye on it, but I'm very pleased with what I see. Very pleased. And I've been hearing a lot of unsolicited comments from staff, which has been super positive. So that's all right.
Anybody else?
Shelley and I were in Jefferson this morning, and I was really pleased at what I saw. It was really, really nice, and that floor was like spit polished. It was beautiful.
And they're not done. They still have a week to go, and that's a little bit of time.
That's a little weeks.
1 week.
Oh, that's right. I get Monday off. Oh my God.
That light bulb goes off.
Okay. Next item on the agenda then is comments from the audience on topics not related to the agenda. Do we have any, Mr. Baker?
We have none, Madam President.
Madam President, I would suggest that we maybe let the new hires go and celebrate.
Can we get through the consent agenda so they know that they're hired? We try to take care of our teachers, and I'm just trying to get them out of this board. You're the one who put the numbers on the agenda. Number 8 is the Delta Plus plan for improvement. Ms. Holbrook.
At the last meeting on August 12th, there were no deltas.
That's good.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. People may leave after it. Okay. Do I have a board member willing to move the consent agenda?
Madam President?
Thank you, Mrs. Fletcher. Is there support? Support. Thank you, Mrs. Tolliver. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the consent agenda? There being none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Have a good night.
That's our staff. We do a theme every year. But these are some of my favorites.
Hey, thank you.
Keychain and all that good stuff. Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. But yeah, it's good. Thank you guys, thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
And then.
Figure it out. You did well.
That was good. I didn't see the ball.
What does the windscreening actually do?
That is what it is.
Oh, that's the purpose, we can see.
That is a safety.
It just makes you wonder how those years, everybody had played that diamond made it, huh?
And every other diamond
And
around.
every other diamond around, it's amazing.
I thought it was to protect the audience.
That'd be at a Lions game.
Tigers can't hit it that far. That's not a problem for them.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss the Board of Education orientation manual.
I guess that's me, right?
Yep.
All right, everybody should have an updated copy of changes. There are a few more tweaks. Mr. Baker sent a few more questions and stuff, and we tried to address them during the day to keep our meetings going forward. So I'll go through them quickly, and if I miss something, let me know. Our first change is on A1.
Are we on this one or this one?
Take this one, the red.
Okay.
It's the orientation ones first. It's A1. We're just adding board members' terms that are 6 years because it was not stated since it changed, and a lot of people don't even realize that they're signing on for 6 years when they run.
Yeah.
So that, you know.
School board version of purgatory.
Right, and you'll only have the pages where there were changes. If you don't have the page, then there mean there were no changes there. So on E1, you'll see about a third of the way down, it's just adding some language about how we go about getting information. It's clarifying it. It's through the chain of command because there was a couple of questions about, you know, what's the proper way to do that. And then down further, we added a sentence to clarify. We have conversations and had a lot about what to do when we cannot make a meeting. So we added the sentence there on E1. And then on J1, under our methods of operation of board operating norms, this kind of covers both because we needed to update our norms, but since it's in this document, it's kind of like doing two things at once. We deleted one. Steve had mentioned at the last board meeting, and I remember to take notes. There was like a duplicate, it meant the same thing.
Yeah.
And then we added on and clarified a little bit on 14 on exactly what is expected from the board members when they can't. Because we go back and forth, what should we do? So you might see the same sentence in 2 or 3 places, but it fit in those boxes to remind people what to do. And then on J4, our agenda is always changing. I asked Jan to go back and look and see exactly how we are doing things, and this is how we are currently doing things. So it's just updating our agenda just a little bit. On J7, the Open Meetings Act has changed per law, and we'll also see it reflected in board policy updates. We can now go into closed session to talk about security planning and potential threats. So that's been added in there because that's a big one. And that kind of goes along with updating our policies. Will be the same thing, so we'll be current with that. J8, we had some questions. I don't think you guys didn't get this response from Kathy, right? I got everybody's copy. So there's gonna be a section on why, duties of the treasurer, why we do certain things. And we'll address that, and this will help explain that when we get to that point. But under warrants, procedures, it talks about how we do it, and you'll see there's a sentence that says, if needed between meetings, the board treasurer may review and typically approve warrants until such time as the whole board is able to review and approve. What I handed to you just kind of summarizes why we do what we do and why I'm part of the financial thing, and I'm a checkpoint in the audit system because everybody has a check person to check their processes. So there are times, and that paper explains when I am sent warrants that I need to approve because they have to be paid for a specific reason. We could get a hefty fine, and Kathy's would have been here, but she's on her way to Alaska with her husband, so she couldn't be here to help me explain. But if you guys would look through that and see if you have any questions.
I read it earlier. My whole point was that if the treasurer approves it, then in fact it is approved whether we approve it or not. We can't undo that. That was my point.
It's just approved tentatively, not a final approval.
But if we cut the check, we can't
Well, it
undo
would
that check.
happen no matter what. There's checks that we approve as a board as a whole that has have to go out because of pay periods and stuff.
Right.
So it's just kind of a chance we're taking, but that's, you know, Kathy explained it, she could have gone in more depth but tried to keep it
No, I get it,
simple.
and I read it this afternoon.
Yeah, so that's why, and I don't think a lot of people didn't even realize it, but I felt it needed because it's part of my job duties. That if I'm no longer here, somebody else wants to step up and take this job. There are other things that go on, like you have special things, Steve has special things, depending on your job. So this was just updating so everybody was aware and asked their question. You still, you know, if somebody really wants to oversee, you know, kind of my job, because the board puts me in my position, and wants to see those two, they just have to let the financial office know. And Kathy would be happy to have the other board members send the copy, but you must know you have to respond almost immediately or within 24 hours because there's a reason.
How often does it happen?
I'd say maybe once a month, just depending on the month, and more so like the year end when we're wrapping things up and getting ready for audit.
Right.
It could go months and I don't see anything. It's just in the timing on when our bills come due.
Do you understand my perspective that
I
in
do.
reality where your approval is the board approval? And I think I'm okay with that. I just, because we can't remand that. We can't undo
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And so I guess as long as we're all okay with that,
Right.
I think that's my point.
And I think it just would fall under, I guess, I look at it as a job description, like we empower the board president to do certain things for the board that comes up that have to be dealt with before us. And there's things that you deal with signing things and stuff, and the board not necessarily sees it till after the fact. I just look at it that way, that it's part of my job. You know, everything's audited. The auditors know the processes. They needed a process in place. We've been doing it that way for years.
Right. So let me walk this through. So ABC company needs $1 and it can't wait. And so you approve that $1. And then at the next board meeting, we say, no, ABC company doesn't deserve that $1. What would happen?
That would be, Kathy would have to, it could happen to anything. I mean, we could come to the board as a warrant and you don't know what of those checks have already technically gone out.
Right.
As a board, we don't. You trust that the checks and balances are in place. You trust the financial department, the treasurer who we've elected to do that job, that it's just an oversight thing. I mean, it could happen to any of us. I mean, we could get caught. Has it ever happened? No.
Yeah.
You know, is it a possibility?
Just a question, when
Yeah.
you're approving,
Mhm.
tentatively approving,
Mhm.
is it items or is it the whole?
No, it's just specific items.
Right.
It's not the whole
That's what
warrant.
I thought.
No, it's just a specific item that comes in. And it's usually, as Kathy says, it usually has to do with payroll or a utility. Those are things, we're not going to say the
Right.
board as a
No, no, no.
whole is
Yeah.
not gonna say, hey, we're not paying you, or we're not paying the electrical bill or the gas.
I
So
get
it's
that.
nothing like,
And we would have penalty on that.
it wouldn't be like me saying, okay, Brian wants to purchase $500,000 worth of tables for the cafeteria. No, I don't see any of that. It's usually payroll or utility, you know, nothing else, nothing big, because it's all connected to contracts and approval, you know? And they're usually minimum amounts, they're usually small amounts.
Any thoughts on this, Mr. Talbot?
No, I think you guys just had a great conversation because you guys nailed it. It's a practical thing, and sometimes it even comes down to, you know, being a late fee or those kinds of things.
Right.
And and so there's that practical piece. But there's also the oversight piece, which you guys take very seriously, and you should take very seriously, because you are responsible for that budget at the end of the day and what we do. Obviously, I have great confidence and have had great confidence in our finance directors and our finance department. That goes without saying with who we've had in there. But you don't do policy on people because you're creating policy for the future. You know, so you wouldn't create a policy knowing that I'm in office or that Kathy's there or that Nick's there. You're creating policy for who's ever there, and you don't know who will be in the future. And so it's important that you ask these questions. And it's important you have this dialogue because you can get trapped in that, I think, sometimes. You know.
Especially on those months when we only have one meeting. Right?
Yeah.
It is, like I said, July is due the year end, and it's December. The board is not meeting, we have to still pay the bills,
Yeah.
we go in, so I guess it's another thing when you go to elect treasurers to entrust that who you're voting, whether it's me or somebody else sitting on this board is gonna do the job, is gonna come up and do the job, and you trust them to do the job. Because I also meet with the auditors twice during the auditing, I met with them when they first started in the summer. You know, is there anything I'm concerned about? Is there anything the board has talked about? It's the liaison between them, and I'll meet with them again before the board even gets that. Because Paul will ask me, well, what does your board need to see? What do they expect? And I trust that you trust me after working together so closely. I kind of know what each one likes. Some are visuals, some like graphs. I try to remember that and we incorporate it. So a lot of people watching our audit would think, boy, that goes really smooth. You know, the board put the rubber stamp, but it doesn't. There's a lot of work that does go on in that department and stuff. And there's other things besides just the title that I do. So this is just putting it in writing because it is part of operations. So the next treasurer will know this is what's expected.
We also have internal controls in terms of separation of duties. And so, so let's say there was somebody wanted to do some shenanigans or something. It's very difficult because you have one person writing checks, you have another person doing bills and that, and so there's internal controls that would that kind of safeguard us also.
And they came up like a few years ago, it's more than a few years ago now, in the audit, they ask you, they have to clarify, that's how we get the rating we get. Who oversees what, who's checking, it's not just one. You know, Kathy's checked every single person over there, and not just by another person, most of them 2 or 3 people. I mean, there's different levels of checks. So when I meet, I feel very, very secure with our, and I think the board itself, but they're open. Like Kathy says, if you have a question, want to come in and look at anything, it's open to everybody. It's not just me.
Sure.
So
Does
that help?
Yeah, I understood it earlier. My point is that we are reviewing it, but then it's saying that we approve it.
And
The
then
reality
what
is we've already
happens?
approved.
And I've asked the same question, and I've asked the auditors, what if it gets to the board and we say we don't want to pay that? There's not really a clean answer. I hope it never gets that
Yeah,
way,
yeah. I'm fine with it as written.
But I do ask them questions, like I'll say, what is it for? So, and then the compensation, I think, there was a little more cleanup to do with that. Steve, did you get a chance to read over that?
I didn't read the cleanup.
Oh, My what?
I gave her a little edge, she was, thought I was just waiting for her.
Pinching me over here. It's sexual harassment.
But
Like,
the
I
way
didn't think you were waiting.
Yeah, that was.
Mr. Dowdy?
Yeah, I guess, you know, what I'm hearing here is like when you want to okay something or you sign off on something, it's our regular, normal, everyday stuff. And it's not something extraordinary or out of the usual. It's something that we all would go, yeah, you signed that. And we all know you wouldn't sign nothing extraordinary or out of the ordinary without bringing it to the board, or even if you felt we had any concerns. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the department wouldn't either, because it wouldn't get past the different levels that are in place. It doesn't happen. But there is that question that we can answer, what if? And one day it could get, like Steve said, it could get all the way to us, and there could be something we want pulled. We haven't gotten there, and I pray we never get there.
And again, I think it's a great conversation because you are responsible for the funds as a board, not just the treasurer. And you don't create policy based on individuals. You create policy based on the positions and who's going, future people. So.
And then there was under board travel, just cleaning up a little wordsmithing on that if for some reason our president and our superintendent denied a request to go to development, we can take it to a member vote, to the whole board, to see if the board might think it warrants. So that's that.
And the reason I wanted it moved down was it sounded like the rest of it after that
Yeah,
was only if it was denied, then you have to do this. No, you gotta do that either way.
yeah. So then on J10, I no longer have to be bonded anymore.
Really?
Yeah, Kathy did research when she came over, and it's been many years since the law changed, and I don't have to be bonded. So that saves us money as a district, because they were having to pay a bonding fee every year. So that was updating that. And then on J12, if you see the board scholarship process, we added honors night, because it did say honors, I want to say honors dinner or something, and we never announce it at the dinner. It's always usually Steve that does it for us at the night, when we have the honors at night. I think that's it for the orientation.
Nice job.
If anybody has, and are you guys okay with the norms as updated to let it go, and then we can track that off of our to-do list?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back for a vote at the next meeting. So then that's board policy updates. Go ahead, Lori.
Oh, Tom, you didn't get to ask a question. What were you going to say?
We're
That was
going to the
moving on.
questions before we move on to policy. Or are we good to bring it back for a vote next time?
No, I think we're good to bring it back.
If the food's here, the pizza's here, and I don't know if you want to get it before it gets cold, before you move on to your next agenda item.
Well, the next two are really quick.
That's fine. I just want it's here,
Are
ready to go. So.
your policy is really quick?
We just did policy.
No, we did operations.
Oh, operations.
So we might want to follow
Yes.
Brian's suggestion,
Yes.
because policy gets a little bit more in depth.
Besides, he's getting hungry.
I'm hungry. That's right.
Yeah.
It was
I'm
that
not
code.
angry.
Give him a Snickers.
No. Hangry.
After my last weigh in my senior year, I don't go hungry anymore.
What?
Thank you. Hey, everybody.
You're officially on the 12. Or flat total. But I was okay with this.
It's warm in here for a month.
Yeah,
We did her send off.
I know what it is.
They're doing another one for her.
No, I know.
I guess
You
she's
might-
got a sweater on. She couldn't answer me honestly.
I was about to say warm. Wearing a sweater.
You know.
You didn't have your sweater on.
You look cold in here. I wear a
Reminder tomorrow is Chris's event over at the high school.
Kensington
Yes.
is beautiful.
The only bad is
over in the lobby, right?
And that makes a whole lot of difference. Marriage license.
Yeah.
You have to look.
So it's in Oakland and
So
Washington.
reminder about Chris's thing tomorrow.
Washington.
No, what's the period?
This is,
Yeah.
congratulations again.
No, yeah,
No,
That's what reminds me of
I thought
Christmas.
one
The whole
of them
state
came in, but I
is
thought
in
it was
love
all
with
day.
No.
You know, get lack of sleeping,
Anyway,
Genesee.
balancing kids
Maybe
and
10
everything.
Oakland.
Yep.
I guess I didn't realize
You
that
know?
was in two different.
Plus I'm in the middle of closing.
yeah,
it
so I
and
ran,
the
and I made sure
the
at
balancing,
headquarters.
these things put to
This
rest.
is the
This is the
facility we're
location.
in, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Literally,
handle it
this
too,
one
and
is
so you get
down,
so
this
tired
one
you
is
can't
down.
sleep, because your mind is too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, that was gorgeous. Gorgeous ceremony. It was awesome.
You know, my kids have needed extra stuff.
State required you to keep it in books, so I can tell you at home. Yeah, they required you to keep it in books. I can photocopy
In
these
case people lose their marriage license.
Maybe.
yeah.
I make a photocopy of.
Yeah, of the marriage license, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
like-
it is tomorrow.
Yeah.
It is tomorrow for sure.
I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow. I looked
I
at the
think it's-
calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have napkins?
How was that?
I'll
find
I'll
some.
put fabulous.
I can go find some.
Okay, thanks.
I'll put fabulous.
Good.
And then we saw Slammer and Gracie
I
this
said,
past
what's good of
week.
yours?
He's doing really good.
Have you talked him into running?
He's waffling.
He needs to talk to Amanda. Maybe they can do it together.
Yeah.
Hold each other's
Right.
hands.
Yeah, as of last time, he's like, I don't know, I don't
Just
do
remind
this
me about
rest
Chris's
in
thing
my
tomorrow,
life.
3 to 6.
I know, but Amanda says, if we don't do it, we can't, their way has changed.
Right, I know.
And there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and they need
Yeah.
new lives and,
Yeah,
Why is
yeah,
the
it's
board-
true.
Oh,
Oh my
Well,
God.
you back.
well, that's gonna be fresh for you. You'll be the only one that's fresh. I saw it on the video.
Oh, which is sad.
oh,
Mr. Fisher, you were right.
Nicole, there's a big salad. It's you? Of course.
One is big, we've got cheese, but it's got tomatoes and green peppers and onions and cheese, and cheese.
Of course, we were doing meal. I'm excited though, because this is supper. Thank you, sir.
You were very welcome.
Yeah. Of course.
I don't think she was looking at the right numbers.
she didn't,
Feel wishful thinking.
she didn't see policy.
No, I didn't.
A blind spot. You're like, where'd you see that? In the middle. In the middle, not above or below.
There's salad.
Yeah. So the girls started commuting.
Quality of the supper is dependent on finance evaluation. I would expect it to be filet mignon, but
You come from?
I ordered that with Jim decided it wasn't a good idea.
back to that finance thing.
She decided that wasn't a good idea.
But I'd rather have 3 ounces of filet mignon than a 20 ounce fatty. I
So
can't
who's
do
driving
fatty
what?
meat.
You just walk, three vehicles and they have to decide?
I think we'll throw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Light up flavor. It's not good for me, but.
I end up cutting it all off. I don't mind it when it's cooking it because it flavors it, and then I cut it all off.
Yeah, because I'm tired of driving.
Oh.
Harry, what he doesn't realize.
I thought you were gonna say, George, how do you know weigh in after you that?
I'll start with the cat.
No, I don't want that. I don't know what he wants. I'm tired of taking him.
It's been a while for me, but I have some ideas. See nothing.
He's gotta quit being so picky and just be thankful for something reliable. The kids somewhere he needs to go.
Oh, because on the railroad.
No, not really.
So you stay within the
Plan
company? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Joe hit.
What about
his
something
eye.
different in the railroad
Couldn't
industry, like,
see 'cause it's dark.
like over the road or something?
Yeah. He had to pull
Yeah,
out
that's a long way.
the tires on the
You know, get started.
Yeah.
It's how the coolers quite get into the.
Yeah, you got, yeah, that's that. Oh, I've been told they like guys that
I know.
control the yards.
I like the.
Please tell me you did something for yourself. Sure.
Yeah, they do that.
Who is that?
I mean, it's fun, but it's not a challenge.
Oh, my God.
You need nothing sometimes. Let me give you mine.
When it all blends together.
It does,
That's
yeah.
fancy one, you know, just something,
What kind of car?
I've got mine out in the car.
I'm not thinking about
You can
him.
have it.
He just won't have
Just see
it.
what I
Her,
can
sometimes she knows.
yeah, I still need something to sit down with, that would.
No. It gives you something
He
to
just
look
gonna
at.
have to figure out where he gonna lay it.
You got help, brother?
Yeah, really getting a lot of these things, have a company, you know.
Yeah.
I will get some salad if you have.
Yeah, he can't do that.
Almost,
I would
yeah.
be glad.
Oh, yeah, they're going the right direction. Yeah, you know, especially what I had. You know, just from a salary standpoint, they're going out a lot, about the supervisor,
He says that my son, yeah, that's exactly.
I still want to bring a crane, I don't like.
Oh. Are you thinking about retiring, Tom?
Well.
Matthew said you made the paper for 45 years of service.
Well, did I?
Yep.
Wow.
45 years of service.
You must have started when you were 12.
It's not high school. My old man says, so you're not going to college.
He
No,
sent-
no,
he
no, I
sent
don't
me
think
a
so.
copy
Well, I
of
guess
the-
you're going to work.
The paper. And he circled Tom Dowdy, 45 years of service.
Wow, that's cool.
Great. But I've been lucky enough to change my job about every 5 years. Right?
But all in the same
Oh, it's
company.
in the same company, yeah.
And you wanted the change?
Yeah, I'd ask for them. Or in the old days, I'd bid, you know, put a bid in and move over here, and when I gave salary, I would ask to move to different spots in salary.
I think you were one of the highest ranking ones.
Someone
When I-
told me I'm
when
about
it's-
10th.
You're up there.
But I'm missing steel. You know, doing the pigeons, the cool, beating the horns and all that stuff, but it's pretty linear. I'm missing steel.
Oh, God. I don't think Matthew would ever miss steel.
Well, he's in the high, I was in the finishing end. And,
Oh, my
treated me
goodness.
real well. I got to travel the country and.
To see those pictures and the things you guys deal with, it's unbelievable. People wouldn't believe it if they didn't see.
Yeah, oh yeah.
When that steel is melting through floors and everything else, just, it's like hot lava, like a volcano erupting. And it just melts everything, just fries everything.
Yes, I can tell you to get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you better run fast.
Do some of that Richard Pryor low running.
Yep. It's not an easy job over there.
Not the hot end guys, they've got it rough. I've been cold in my pretty much my whole career. Finishing.
Did you work the ladle buckets at one point or something? I don't remember that.
Well, one of the jobs for the railroad is when it's coming out of the blast furnace, we fill what we call bottles or ladles, if you will, whatever we want to call them, and we have to hook up to them usually, you know, push them underneath the ladle or spout, so to speak, and then tell them, okay, you know, try it, clear, and the metal will come out, be formed out from either your fire extinguisher up there, if you're standing there watching, splashing. That's one of the jobs.
Anybody ever miss?
They're always real close. just because they have a guy. It's
Real
amazing,
close, really
really. They got a guy up there,
It was
but he threw a little glass window about like this, down into the bottom. And he's telling me, you go, okay, you get the 123 bottle on each side, we got to spot how they'll look clear. And he'll look through that hole and go, well, you need to bump it a little bit north. Bump it a little bit north. You clear, he'll probably feel like he'll pour the metal in. Then if it's good, then you got bottles on your side, so you either tell them to stay on this or they'll bump it back to where it was. I mean, I haven't seen any accidents, but the stories I've heard.
Not a good day when your boss is cleaning up your steel mess.
It's like clean out your locker because of the amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
You seem to be a stickler for safety. You have to follow protocol.
Yeah, the most interesting company I've worked out of 4 or 5 is always about safety.
Are we filming this whole thing?
Right?
That way we won't forget to turn it back on.
Delmonico steak, right, tonight.
What's that?
At Delmonico tonight.
No, that's why you're not.
That's one of my favorites.
I'm just a steak fan, so.
Did you cook it yourself?
Indeed. Can't cook a steak, get out of the kitchen. I mean, really, right? The whole just add, turn the heat on. Or broil it if you want.
My friend is a chef though,
Potatoes.
and they made him cooking a scrambled egg for his first try, and didn't have it on other.
I don't even have a steak. Scrambled eggs. I had to take off food with it, I knew it had to be the other half today.
Yep.
You like that
Oh, what's going on down there? Certain things are better, but soups, it's good.
Still working on the concepts of that memorial wall.
So,
I think that's gonna look really, really nice. Yeah, because where we are.
on what?
The memorial wall for those who fallen in line the country, so we maybe been killed in action, in action, or like a firefighter or policeman has died on the job. I think we're probably gonna have, I've heard now from maybe 6 or 7. I figure we'll probably have somewhere between 10 and 15. Mostly Vietnam, probably all Vietnam. I don't think we lost anybody in the Middle East because we would know. We've all been around since the Middle East. And I don't remember hearing them number. So, but it's gonna come out nice. Excited about that. Actually, I got a text or an email from Wrestler. Well, not even younger than you. Older than you. I think it was 69 grand. Maybe it's 70 grand. Wrestled, he had a nickname, Crazy Armenian or something. Jerry.
Your Emmett graduated.
He wrestled with Mindshine.
Yeah, Emmett Miller, Mark Miller.
Yeah. What do they call him? Crazy Armenian.
Was that self-designated or was
That's what was in the yearbook. I don't know.
And they can be.
I've known a few crazy Armenians that start with like Big Bill and Little Bill that have followed me my whole life.
Are they both Armenians?
And they're quite characters. Right.
Everybody has been with Big Bill.
Yeah.
But he was wondering, he had sent
I've only done it once.
information about William Parker. So I just told him we honored him with a diploma, and he's definitely he's the one who got us talking. Really.
Yeah.
A guy graduated, Jay King. I don't know if you know Nancy King or any of the Kings, but he went in service like 2 weeks after high school. He was Bill Ford into the Army on a buddy plan. He stayed in. He still might be in on active reserve. He's been in every conflict we've been in since 74. So he did all the ones in Bosnia, Serbia. He did, both the Gulfs, both of those. Oh, he's been there for over 40 years. I think he's
What branch?
Huh?
What branch?
Army. I think he was the last one that they gave him the title of gunny sergeant. Like they did away with that. He might be the last one with the gunny sergeant title. But you stay active. You can turn one down, but the next one you can't turn down, or you're off of active duty. But think about it, he's been in every conflict since 74.
That's amazing.
Yeah. In his later years, like he would be more sometimes like a liaison in the town, but still, the way things were.
But he was there.
He's walking around in the community, like how that goes over sometimes.
And he's got a uniform. Did we hear anything from the young guy who got his diploma early? It was Marine, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Have we heard anything?
No.
Brian, why don't we allow them to wear their sashes when they've already signed up?
The uniform, because you would get into everybody wanting to, and I realize the service is different, but you really get into, we get requests from a lot of different people to be able to wear different things. And so that's why we really open up Pandora's box when you allow one group to do something and not another. And I don't think that's what we want to do. I mean, we have a ceremony that has its own uniform, so to speak,
But a lot of them wear cords and everything else that changes.
well, we give them the cords that are sanctioned by us. It wouldn't be unlike being at a military graduation and deciding I want to wear different ribbons or different pins or whatever. The military themselves have a very strict code about what during their ceremonies and stuff, and so. And then if you get
Just seems ironic that we're honoring them for that, but yet they can't wear it.
Well, you put yourself in a tough position when you start saying you can and you can't, and because you could be looking at a lawsuit in terms of why not, and there could be some crazy things out there that we're not even thinking about, and so you have to be careful of that. So. And we had conversations with, the gentleman last year. It wasn't him; it was another person. And there's another piece to it too. Sometimes they're not actually in yet, and kind of there, kind of not. So, because we had a couple last year that were in that conversation, and I'm not even sure that they went. So you get into some of that, and then, but that's why we decided we would recognize, and that's what we did. And we're going to continue to do that. So we will make, we'll have them stand and be recognized. And then that's what they wanted to be recognized, and for good reason. We want to recognize. But you have to be very purposeful, otherwise you'd be surprised with the requests we get for graduation. Maybe we wouldn't, I don't know.
Try and
Then you're opening up yourself.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, and I get what you're saying. It just, that might be the clarity point is, are you actually signed in?
But yeah, the military, what about X or Y or Z?
But then somebody said, oh, you let them wear it, how come I can't? That's what they are doing there.
I had a wedding that the bride wanted to ride in her horse out the church.
Let me tell
Had a
you.
lot. That's not happening. You want to go to kids?
Did you have long blonde hair?
We had a wedding at our, we had a wedding at our 55th class reunion. And there was the rabbi, and it was just everything, so I, of course, me and oh, so you did great, you didn't have to send out an invitation, you did great, you didn't spend no money.
Were they both in your class?
Yes, but let me tell you what happened. His wife passed,
Okay.
her husband passed, and then they started dating again, and then, they probably started dating, at probably,
The last reunion.
no. They weren't at 50th, no. They were, they were, their spouses were still. And then probably about 2.5 years, but they were together in high school. She went to college, he went to college, and, they were
No, I
all
think
married.
girls, I get it.
And then at
Yeah.
With the girls, I think they'll double up.
2.5,
Or you pay,
3
you can pay.
years before,
If you wanted to see one,
our 55th
you can pay
reunion,
for
Right.
they started dating.
I never had to worry about it because it's something you got.
Because, we get together,
So the hours, so the protocols have doubled up.
Really?
some of us.
Oh, that's cool. I guess.
So they got married at our 55th.
I thought they always worked.
We'll talk more later.
Are you really? No.
No.
You're just gonna say, no, we're just gonna.
I think she might be going somewhere where
Has
her mind goes, but she's not quite out of the middle.
You're ignoring
Oh, no,
I think she's purposely.
No, she's not there.
It's like,
No, it's an honest wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, well, see, I'm not sure yet. I don't know when she's
I
transitioning.
know, yeah. I thought you were in Las Vegas, so the Midwest.
That's not headaches.
You just married your name to me.
Right.
Toledo, Shirley put on the white chapel.
We'll all go and move you to Hector's.
I'll be better than that.
Yeah, we're gonna show you all the parents. Take your notes.
I did too.
You went to White Chapel or you went to Toledo?
In my,
Really?
And Elvis was actually there.
They made it easy there?
No blood pressure in one day. The same day, that's what,
Even though you live out of state?
yeah,
That's
They
a money.
charge you more?
It's a money.
It's
raining.
Sure.
In Toledo.
And if
They
it
were
broke
coming
down,
from,
choke down that Nestle water. I'm so sorry, Tom.
She said, we can stop here and get here.
Don't choke on it, might be the worst.
He's like, I'll throw you here.
Well, shall we at least get started?
Let's go. Everything
We haven't finished, you may finish.
I'm good, so I guess I'm being right, right?
You are, ma'am.
All right, board policy updates. You'll see Jan did the different colors for us, with the green and the red. So it's, if you look at the bottom page, corner 3 of 3, that's our first change. Down toward voting. And that is changed because of law. And I know we've had a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Can you find it? Steve, you put a new,
No, but I'm looking for my original.
and the voting has changed because of the military duty part of it. And I know we've talked, some as a board, if we wanted to do anything. And I think how our policies are stated now covers everything we need at this point in time. So, does anyone have any questions with 3 of 3? Because that's law driven.
Want me to go on? All right, the next page, 1 of 2. It's letter H was added. And this is Neola's verbiage because it's gone through legal and everything, aligning with the law changes. So we had nothing to do there. We just have to accept the change.
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
1 of 2, it says, or should I go to the top? It's really hard because we only copied what we changed. I'm just flipping through it. No, 7 of 38. Do you want me to go by the top?
Yeah, that's probably right.
Okay, 7 of 38, it's adding the letter H. And then we go over to 11 of 38. E has been taken out. And A has been revised to their language. And that's all law driven for that. And then the next one, 13 of 38, it's just taking out that sentence.
Brian, can you tell us what are the implications then of this grade appropriate instruction?
For the career counselor?
Yeah, and it's not very similar to what is stated in, life skills, essential life skills, life role, whatever. But what did you have in mind?
Well, I had in mind having a conversation with Dr. Hofer about making sure that at every grade level there's a conversation about this, obviously at an appropriate level.
Sure.
It's
Like a whole unit, or it's a 1 hour conversation? What do you think?
Unfortunately, because it all depends on the grade level and all the things we're trying to teach, and every time the state requires us to do something else, I get we have a shortage of carpenters.
Yeah.
But adding it to, third grade curriculum or first grade curriculum isn't going to change that shortage. Throw some money into career tech. That's what's going to make the big difference.
Yeah.
And so, because I don't know if you remember that Baldrige slide of the guy in the tank and the thing here and the valve in the bottom.
Oh, right.
If you just keep adding and adding and adding, it's you become that much less effective. And that's kind of this. Obviously, I'm a little irritated by it because it sounds good. I'm going to pass a law that says we're going to do this, but it really doesn't help. But we will follow the law, and so certainly part of the curriculum director's role is to ensure that every time we get some of this new stuff, it's being done. And Charity asked, at our last admin meeting, she was very clear on some making sure that Constitution Day is recognized and other things. This is not the only Velcro thing stick it to the teacher kind of a thing, and so Christian's already been on it, and some of those some things that have already been in law, so she doesn't take it for granted that we're just doing those things. But that will be part of the conversation in curriculum.
Any more questions for that? So we can move on to 13 of 38. It's just taking that one sentence out.
I had several along the way there that were like district and board, and I think we've talked enough about that.
I think, and Jan said there's no problem, just if you, the words fit with the commas, the board and the district, that you're good at catching that we were just going to go with what you had found and just give her those changes she submit. That won't affect our coverage from Neola or anything that with the law. That just makes it look better because they didn't catch it. So. And then I think she's got all those changes too, right, Steve? I think she said.
She did this afternoon.
Yeah. And then 16 of 38. The green is the new verbiage, and the red is what was there that will be removed.
Mr. Gullis, can we ask why we're dropping from 90 to 60?
The law.
No.
In, you know, the law, the reason that the law is there, again, you know, completely ignore we have a teacher shortage.
Right.
Completely ignore that teachers aren't going into teaching because of, you know, having taken away the pension and,
Right.
and all the reasons that we know, you know, beating up on teachers or whatever. Completely ignore all that and then just lower the standard. You know, but, you know, to get to Jason's role, you know, Jason has to make sure that, you know, all, you know, 300 classrooms are covered and you know, on any given day, to make sure there's enough people. And so, yeah, again, lower the standard,
Yeah.
don't address the real issue, which is teacher shortage.
Yeah, gotcha.
I was driving down, sounded like I'm starting my pants on fire. I'm driving down 94, there's a big sign. Want to teach? Start tomorrow. I swear to
I
God.
saw that.
Call, and there's a phone number to call. Want to teach? Start tomorrow. Well, if you have 60 hours, then you can substitute teach.
So, and you don't even have to be 60 hours in education.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right.
No.
It's just
Correct.
any college credit.
Anything, yes.
I'm telling you.
It's 80 credits of college.
No,
No, it's dropped
the
to
law
60
is
now.
60, yeah, 60.
it's six, it was 90, now it's 60,
Yeah, they just changed it.
Yep.
and they just changed
This
it.
in the spring.
They did that.
They're just lowering it and lowering it.
Or an associate degree.
Don't address the problem.
In whatever.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to explode. I mean, I think it's going
It's
to.
crazy.
60 hours in basketball, then I can go fill in as a math teacher.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Good,
can.
as a sub, yeah.
Every teaching university is turning out less than 50% of the number of teaching candidates they did 5 years ago. So Eastern might have turned out, and help me out if I'm wrong there, Jason, but Eastern might have turned out 1,200 5 years ago. They're now turning out less than 600.
It's less than that.
It is by
less
less
to
than
go
that.
as teaching.
Yeah.
And there are some universities who have just closed their teaching colleges altogether.
Altogether, yes.
But ignore that and lower the benchmark.
Yep.
You guys ready to move on?
That's sorry.
All right.
We got Brian round here.
We're to page 19 of 38. And it's talking about the credit and the teaching certificates and stuff, and that's all the law. We had to change this because of going down, this is 60 hours. And then 21 of 38, it's just adding a footnote that this is connected to the policy.
You're on 21 of 38?
21 to 38, and there's one that says, see also policy 5013.02, school choice options provided by federal law.
Right.
Yeah, they're just adding that to connect the two policies.
And my concern, and I was in Washington DC, so I didn't have that policy with me. My concern is that it almost gives a blanket approval to the parent. And so my thought was that we say something along the lines of within the limits set by the administration, for example, class size or whatever, because
Yeah, we don't put it in policy legally because of the way the law reads, but it goes under Brian's administrative guidelines, and they form how it's handled on their level as administrators and superintendent. We don't put anything in writing as a policy.
You know, can't change law, federal law. But we do have operational things that we have in place to.
So if I want my kid to go to Jefferson, he goes to Jefferson,
No.
because that's what that says.
Well, I guess we could argue that. And I'll tell you why we're there, why we've come to the place we're at, is
Right.
we were at a point where we had just sheets and sheets of kids going to different buildings.
Right.
And it just caused lots of problems for us. And so, no, you have to give us an educational reason and have conversations. And I suppose if you showed up at the door with an attorney and we had lots of conversation, I might have to.
And my point is that it puts it in your perspective, not blanket, like, as I read this.
Well, I
If
think
you,
if you
if you
look-
have enough of the administrative that you're comfortable with that, I'm okay with it, but.
And I'll review that, I will review it.
And I think if you look at the copy of the school choice options provided by the No School Up Behind Act, which is right behind this, it
Right.
gives you a better, clear view of what they're actually talking about.
Okay, that's fine.
Are we okay? And then 23 of 38, and that's more of that, these concerns with the school choice option. It's federal law, and they've axed the No Child Left Behind Act because it has changed. It's called Elementary and Secondary Education Act now. So that is just updating the legal part of it.
Yeah, and in here it actually says the reasons that you can change schools.
Right. Then the next one, 25 of 38, it's just a new paragraph that's being added. And that is law. It's things that have changed when we renovate and do new construction, things that we have to do as a district.
And my question on that was, is there nothing more current than 2009, which is a full 10 years ago?
Oh, that amount there, that 20,959, Jan didn't know of anything, because her and I talked about it. And Neola goes through the legal and all the stuff like that, so we're assuming that they have not updated anything since 2009. But we could make it,
That might be a good,
Find out.
that might be a good listserv or something like that.
Yeah.
just to see if it's truly been stagnant, or is there change and they just haven't
Yeah.
picked up on it.
Yep.
Then the next one is 27 of 38.
What kind of renovation you can do for 20,000 to a school?
Page 27 of 38, it's just adding a sign. Adding a sentence. Yeah. One day. And then, of course, she updates, any changes, we changed the 216 to 219, how she reflects at the bottom. Then 33 of 38, it's the same thing, and that's on the crowdfunding. We're removing those couple of sentences, and they're giving more clarification and stuff. So changing with the law, I think it's more clearer understanding. Does anyone have any questions about that? That's Brian's favorite conversation, right? Jason's laughing. We had some really in-depth conversations on that.
Yes, we did.
And then 37 of 38. It's under substitutions. It's just some clarification, cleaning that up a little bit, relabeling that. And that was that, except Steve had submitted a lot of district board things that we're cleaning up, a lot of typos and stuff. Jan has those, and she will make sure that all those changes are put in, and then this would come back for board vote in 2 weeks. If I've answered all the questions, and
Nice
there's
job.
questions.
Thank you, Cheryl, for doing that. And the committee. Mr. Baker, to the board
I'm gonna go up, I went down 3.
I
I'm gonna
know,
go up
I was
1.
just sitting here thinking, I'm freezing.
You need a hug. Michelle.
I'm comfortable.
Okay.
And I have a heavier sweatshirt on and I'm freezing.
I went down 4 and I just went up 2, so I think I got the number. I'm gonna tell you what that is. 68 seems to be the right number.
Next item on our agenda seems to be comments from the audience. Mr. Baker, do we have any?
We have none, Madam President.
The next item on our agenda is the Plus Delta, and I believe Mrs. Hofer is taking this on. Yes.
Thank you. So tonight we'll do a Plus Delta on the meeting. What processes help support the work that we do?
you guys really got to hire all them fine new teachers we got. Yes.
There is something fun about seeing that new youthfulness, wow, I don't know, sort of youthfulness, new excitement of them starting.
So real quick, how does the job fair work?
So, it's a good question. There's various formats, but the most popular format, even with critical shortage that Brian was talking about, is so the district pays an entry fee, and then you set up your table that advertises the district with any necessary handouts that you might want to share with prospective candidates. And then you have signage. So we use a lot of the signage that you have there in the lobby to attract candidates to us. Sometimes they'll set you up by region. So like some schools will put all the Wayne County school districts together. Some schools will put all the Michigan districts together, or they'll put all the traditional comprehensive public schools together, but they'll keep the charters separate. So Michigan is notorious for producing quality educators. So we get a lot of out-of-state districts, especially those that have countywide districts, that will come to the Michigan job fairs because we have such notoriety for producing quality educators in Michigan. So they'll put all the Florida districts together, Tennessee districts together, Texas districts together. So they'll try to lump you together, and then sometimes they'll switch it up based on your availability. So if you know that you have a bunch of elementary retirees, other districts that might be looking for elementary teachers at Michigan State that have similar like vacancies, they sometimes try to lump you together based on the vacancies that you have. Or like career tech, like if your career tech ed teacher's retiring, or art teacher. So it can kind of vary. Each school has a little bit different format. Some colleges have become more proactive where candidates can pass their materials to school districts that they're interested in, even prior to the job fair. So that you could reach out to that candidate and say, hey, Misha, I'm gonna be at Eastern. Thank you for sending me your stuff. Please stop by and see me at the booth. I really want to talk with you about, the elementary school openings that we have. So kind of a variety.
So then it's just all of these prospective teachers to be hired are just wandering around and saying, oh, I think I'll stop talking to this person.
Yep.
Oh, let me talk to this person.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is it puts some of the ownership on the candidates too to think, am I going to be in state or am I going to be out of state? Or if you know that you're moving across the state because your spouse did a job transfer from Grand Rapids to Detroit, if you've done your homework, you can kind of do your 20-mile radius, because you see some folks like that too, or transplants that moved out of state during the recession that are now looking to come back to Michigan because there's jobs now, and or because they're also having children and their families are still here.
Right.
We see a fair amount of that too.
Why don't you make that distinction about countywide? Just because it's a bigger pool? That out-of-state countywide tend to come.
So, yes, because, for example, we're a district of 185-ish teachers, but like Hillsborough County in Florida, like in the Tampa area, they have 250,000 students. They have the same amount of students in their county that we have in all of Wayne County, but it's one employer. So a lot of southern states, like Wayne County would be one district, and we're the most populous county in the state. We have about 250,000 students in Wayne County.
Wow.
So it's not uncommon for like the populous counties in like Florida, they'll have 250,000 students for one district. But they'll have 30 high schools.
So back to Plus Delta.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating though, good question.
I do want to make a comment on that a little bit, then we'll back to Plus Delta, because I know you see the end result, but the end result is not what most districts get. A lot of districts have a hard time getting quality candidates now because there's so few. So when I waited in line to get into South Bedford, I bet I waited an hour and a half just to go up and talk to the Weber for 15 minutes. And so that's not the case anymore because there's so few candidates out there. So now we have to be competitive about trying to get the best to come to us. And so Jason's done a nice job PDSing his process. And I just give you an example of what came out of his latest PDSA was to take teachers. So he would take a teacher to a job fair, and so these young kids are kind of relate more to that new teacher, you know, and so they can kind of, you know, form that relationship so that we can get them to make sure that they stay with us. And so that's part of it. There are some districts that are so desperate for teachers. I mean, they'll have one interview and hire the person in a half hour. You know, Jason has done a really, really, really nice job. One, negotiating. So and these are tough times for negotiating because you know what finances are like. But these last couple of contracts, you know, he was clear, you know, we need to raise the bottom so that we can continue to attract good candidates. And that's what we did. That's what you guys did in your last contract. And so we're one of the better paying districts, and that helps. But kids know right now, they know that they're kind of in the driver's seat. They can work wherever they want to work. And so the other thing that Jason is a master at is making the candidate feel comfortable and welcome. And so when you go through, you know, our evaluate or our hiring process, it's 4 interviews. One of those interviews you have to teach in front of kids. Jason had alluded to that earlier. There's nobody around that does that, but we get the best, and we're able to sort it out. It's one thing to be able to talk the talk, you know, and recite and regurgitate all the things you've read. It's not anything to stand in front of kids, you know, our real kids, and do your work. And so,
Did you say nobody else around does that?
I don't know anybody.
Not really.
I don't know anybody. That makes you get up in front of kids now because most people just want teachers. But I think the reason they hang in there and they stay with the process is because of the way Jason, not only himself, but the way he works with the rest of the team. You know, the teachers that are on the team, the clerical that's on the team, he makes them feel comfortable. I am the last interview, and so I always talk about the process. If they don't bring it up, a lot of them will bring it up and say, "This has been the best. It's been hard. I can't believe I have to interview again." But they always comment on the process, and they might not say Jason, but they'll say, "You know, I felt so comfortable, and I felt like I could just talk, like it was a conversation, and it wasn't like I was sitting in front of, you know, a stern board of people that are just trying to, you know, trip me up, kind of a thing." So I don't take it for granted for what Jason does. I know how much hard, I know how hard it is to get what he gets, and so I certainly appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Auctioning off the black pickup, I thought was going to be a good idea too for this group.
Yeah, Jason. We didn't talk about that.
Yes. Thank you.
So I sat in on Paul's interview.
Paul, yep. Yes, you did.
So
Yes.
awesome. But Jason makes everybody comfortable and relaxed. But Jason isn't playing at the same time. You know what I mean? So there are things that the interview person knows they have to still do. But it's real relaxed, it's real chill. You know, but you know, still, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
he takes the nervousness away, but not the underlying reason that you're in. You know. And I was like, this is awesome. I wish everybody had a Jason like that makes you feel as important as the interview process is. You know.
I don't, because then we'd be competing with them.
No, just go. You know, but yeah, it was awesome to see.
Yeah,
You know, I'm so sorry I bum rushed that interview, but it was awesome to see. It was,
Yeah,
I was very impressed with you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
No problem.
Thank you.
It was okay.
You've lost
Let's do the
control.
plus delta. Well, I wrote down a lot of things about Jason. I took it as being part of it. Any other pluses for the meeting this evening?
We're all here.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Are there any things we can improve upon?
Well, I have like a comment or a plus.
Okay.
Jan worked really close with me for the changes. I mean, she took time out where we physically sat at her computer last week and took everybody's input and tried to get the changes to make sure the board could see them and that they were easily understood. So Jan goes over and above, and I don't think most people knew, you know, and then she was helping me again today make changes to get it ready to continue to get the work passed and through what we need to do as a board. That she's kind of the wizard behind the curtain, you know.
Behind and front, on top of
And she didn't flinch when I kept 7:30 this morning when I was on, and I said, do you know we're going to a very long board meeting and some of our board members haven't eaten? Can we have food? I'll take care of it. I mean, she does not complain, doesn't hesitate, she just does, and that makes our job a lot easier. And I think a lot of times people don't realize how much work she's put in, you know, to help us do our job.
She's nothing short of remarkable.
You are correct, that's right. She
Is
doesn't
it
have
pleasant?
Trust me, I don't.
She doesn't have to be remarkable, she is.
She is.
Right.
She does it very quietly. She gets it done, she makes sure everything's done, and not only done, but done so well.
I noticed we had one.
Yeah, she's always that step ahead, always a step ahead.
I'm gonna have to talk to purchasing.
Nestle's. Nestle's.
You don't like Nestle's?
They're stealing our water.
They're making us pay for it.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
They are basically stealing it.
They are.
Yeah, they are.
One of our largest aquifers right in here.
Okay.
They're getting it for free, pretty much for free under our little log glitch.
Yeah.
If you own the land, you can put a well on it and pump it. So they're like pulling out 800,000 gallons a day and paying nothing for it. And this aquifer's supposed to be feeding Lake Michigan to boot. So no, I don't like it.
We won't buy Nestle anymore. Put that in the,
Brian was on vacation hunting bears when we had this discussion as a board.
Oh, you guys, yeah.
You weren't here when we.
So that's why we still have Nestle's.
All right, well, let's make the Delta. Any other Deltas?
I have another Delta. I just have a comment. You know, I have to commend Jason for the amount of hirees that he gets. And the teachers seem to be like they're good.
Anything else?
I know we bumped back the evaluation, if I remember right. I'm not sure that it's a great idea that we're starting at 8:08 with Brian's evaluation, but it is what it is.
it's an anomaly year.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad he took off board goals?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's right.
I looked at both of those things and said, no.
No. It's all good.
Okay, next item on our agenda then is the annual evaluation of the superintendent. That's the wrong one. Board meeting on January 26, 2019, the Board of Education evaluate the performance of the superintendent using the Jim Shipley and Associates evaluation instrument. Processed in 7 categories, including leadership, strategic planning, customer focus, measurement, analysis, and knowledge management, workforce focus, process management, and results. District student growth will also be considered in the evaluation. Board may recess into closed session if requested by the superintendent for this periodic evaluation of the superintendent of schools as provided for in section 0167.2 of the board policy manual, in Michigan's Open Meetings Act, section 8A of the PA 267 as amended by PA 256 of 1978. Mr. Galvez, did you want to go into closed session?
Madam President, I request closed session.
Okay, do I have a board member willing to move into closed session?
I move that we move into closed session, Madam President.
Is there support? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Is that all of us, Madam President?
Yes, it was.